Hello and welcome to tonight's LOL Esports Roundup. We're going to cover the LCS games from last night between Dignitas and TSM, as well as the LCK regular season that occurred earlier today. As I'm speaking, Team Liquid and 100 Thieves are playing in the LCS playoffs. Recap: predictions. I'm 251 and 123. Went 3-0 on this board. Dignitas win 3-2 against TSM. Poom was my MVP on Rakan in Game 5. Tomo 25, 13, 32, 26% of damage. Jensen 24, 11, and 30 in mid lane. Insanity 25, 12, and 25, 31% of damage in the loss. I felt like Insanity and Hanser looked very good. They're the best of the 5 for TSM. Wild Turtle had some nice plays, especially in Game 5. However, it wasn't enough. As Dignitas early on, they approached the draft in a weird way, in my opinion, putting Jensen on Tristana and Rich on Ornn. It caused them to trade games one apiece against TSM. You know, when you think of Hanser into Rich, you don't think of Hanser on the Rumble and Rich on the Ornn. You think of the opposite, but it wasn't the case. Insanity on Jace. Dig in Game 2, they had... Or was it Game 3? It ended up being... I think in Game 3, it was still Tristana, Jace mid matchup, but Dig had Ziggs in bot lane for Tomo. I am not a big Ziggs fan, to be quite honest with you. I think we talked about on the Discord the one day, Gala is the only player that can kind of play it right now. Otherwise, I'm really not a big fan of Ziggs bot lane. I don't think many players are very good at it. And teams don't know how to play around it. I know it pairs well with an AD mid like Tristana or Jace, and I mean even we're seeing Ksa and some crazy shit in mid. But regardless, the point still stands. So early on, that was kind of the approach through the first 3 games. Dignitas get out to a 2-1 lead, and then in Game 4 they get cute. LeBlanc top lane for Rich. That doesn't work. Dignitas struggle. TSM find a way to win. There was really only one blowout, and it was Game... it might have been Game 3 for Dignitas, even though they had Ziggs. They blew out TSM. I think that was the blowout. Very one-sided. But, I mean, it wasn't... I didn't think it was because of the Ziggs, but regardless. More importantly, and most importantly, Game 5. You're wondering, why is Poom MVP? I thought his engages were very good outside of the botched dive in the laning phase by Dig. TSM had a big lead in this one. After Wild Turtle got the double kill, he had 3 kills. TSM were up a couple K gold. They were in the driver's seat. And hell, they even had 3 Drakes. And just in the mid game, they just couldn't get it done as Poom engaged well. Tomo's feathers were on point. Rich finding a way on Gwen to have impact despite being down a ton of gold against Hanser. I mean, it was an 80 CS diff, and Rich was still coming through in team fights, solo killing Wild Turtle in one. Wild Turtle got solo killed a couple times in the mid to late game in this one. Really struggling to end possibly his career, because I'm pretty sure TSM split is done now. It wasn't a great showing in the latter portions of the series. Boogie through as well, getting caught out multiple times, allowing Dignitas to take a Baron in the mid game, around 25 minutes or so, because he got caught out when they had the lead, and then it would happen again. He would get caught out a second time. So a lot of mispositioning by him, and unfortunately for TSM, 4v5, they couldn't get it done against Dig and push them off of Baron. So that's kind of the deal. I mean, both teams kind of are whatever. Jensen plot armor is real. He's been to Worlds, I think, 9 years in a row or 8 years in a row, which is a record. And so, I mean, he's going to Worlds, right? Despite Dignitas being 7-11, he'll find a way. LCK T1 Live Sandbox. T1 win 2-1 as they finish the split 9-9. Sandbox 5-12 currently. Owner was my MVP. Gumiushi 22, 6 and 16, 32% of damage in the win. Zeus 4, 3 and 28 in top. Teddy 9, 8, 20, 37% of damage in the loss. The stats especially damage, are a bit scuffed because nowhere has Game 2 stats. I couldn't find it on Leaguepedia, Game of Legends, or Oracle Elixir, so I had to do it myself with, math and a calculator and all that jazz. Regardless, Game 1, T1 had a slight advantage. We had an argument on the Discord about a disagreement. T1 were in a 2/3 at worst, 3/4 at best probability of winning if you utilize, I think the Oracle Elixir gold calculator for the early game, based off of 2023 spring. Of course, the meta has shifted a bit. But regardless, T1 were in a good spot. Sandbox T1 decided to make a play bot side in the mid game. Live Sandbox try and force Baron off of that and fail. As owner dives in, T1 dive in, they take the Baron, they win the team fight, and then T1 would win the game after that. Game 2 was close. Zeus trying very hard on Gnar. I thought he was very good in this series overall. But in Game 3, owner was just more important than he was. Faker struggled mightily in Game 2 on the Tristana, dying 8 times. Outside of Zeus, really, the other 4 players had some big difficulties in that losses. Closer showed up. Clear looked pretty good. He's getting better as he gets more time. I'd argue that he's a little more consistent than Birdall. We do have to also remember, though, the book is not as full of, what can he play as Birdall's was. So as things go along here, if Sandbox go to the playoffs as 6th seed, it will be interesting if teams scout him or even just go to topside and put him in the grave because he is so inexperienced. But in Game 2, they looked very good. Closer looked good. He looked good. Cal looked very good. His engages were on point. But in Game 3, T1 pulled out an interesting draft. We had Maokai top, that was the first time Zeus has ever played Maokai in a pro game, and including challengers. And then Faker played Xerath, which was the first time he's done that since 2014. He's 0-3 on the champion before today. So that was an interesting decision. Owner on Lee Sin, obviously, best Lee Sin possibly ever when it comes to win rate, above 80% through 54 games going into today. Now over 80% in 55. All over the place, and Willer just could not keep up. Willer looked good on Nocturne in Game 2, but in Game 3 on Sejuani, he was gapped by Owner. Owner went top side a couple times, he went bot side. Willer just could not create as much as Owner was, and that was a big diffie. That's a big diffie, and then when things got, more of a team fight oriented game, Carrier was very good on the Rakan. I believe he had 15 of 16 KP, so he was alongside Owner for a lot of the plays, which I do believe is important. Cal not keeping up with Carrier's roams and not affecting the Rift to offset that. I think that's very important. We have to always think about the game. When someone's roaming or making something happen, you need to offset that, whether that's in your lane or that's getting vision or that's roaming and affecting or matching the roam or going to the other lane and doing something or invading and doing something. And one could say, well, they don't know. No, you're a pro. You need to, okay, this person's not back in lane yet. What are we going to do here? It's 2v1. We don't know where they are. Maybe we need better vision. Things like that. So, even in your own games, you should be thinking of ways to offset things. Nongshim KT. KT win 2-1. They are 16-1. Nongshim finished 5-13. BDD was my MVP for his Game 3 on Nico. Aiming 28-14, 30% of damage. Kaz 11-4, 25 in the jungle. Jiwoo 8-13, 17, 28% of damage in the loss. Nongshim putting up another very competitive matchup after their Dam1 Kia loss. This one, very competitive loss as well. They won Game 1. KT threw a bet. Let's be real. But they were competitive in Game 2 against KT and Game 3. KT had to bring it back. They were behind. So BDD started going topside and helping Keen into Dindin. I think there was a draft diffie because Dindin's on Kesante, and why is Keen playing Malphite? What are we doing? I understand in the mid to late game his engages were pretty good. I thought BDD's Pop Blossoms were the difference, which is why he gets MVP. But at the same time, Keen is your best player. If you want to make BDD your facilitator, that's fine. But Keen cannot be on Malphite. He is better than Din Din. And in Game 2, we saw in Fiora him having quite a bit of impact when they won that game. Should have been giving Keen a more powerful pickup there against the rookie top laner. I thought Sylvie did some nice things. Cuz obviously played excellent. Fiesta looked good on the Seraphine. That was an interesting mid lane choice. We haven't seen that for a while. In bot lane, I thought Peter looked better than Lehens in this series. I thought Peter may have been Nongshim's best player. I thought his Rakan was very good. His positioning was on point. Game 3, he looked excellent. Thought he was really solid. However, couldn't get it done. Just couldn't get it done as BDD just came through, bringing them back, like I said, going top side. Getting a couple kills to just inch back into this, because it was a few thousand gold diff before 20 minutes. Like, Nongshim had this series and blew it. Aiming, obviously, there's a very nice KDA there, so you can't, and he led in damage, so we got to kind of say something. In team fights, he looked really good, but I thought BDD was all the setup, so you cleaned up. Good for you, Aiming. Sneak peek for tomorrow, LCK, Dam1 Kia, HLE, DK... D plus 9th, HLE 10th, both 11 and 6. D plus coming off of that win against Nongshim. HLE a loss against Gen G when they played earlier in the split. D plus 120. Showmaker 1709, 34% of damage. Zeka 274, 25% of damage in the loss. Gen G and Brian. Gen G 16 and 1 coming off of a win against HLE. Brian 4 and 13 coming off of a loss to DRX. Brian has nothing to play for in this one. I believe they are eliminated from the playoffs. Gen G 1-2-0 last time they played. Chovy led the way, 5-3-14, 32% of damage. Karis 4-2-12, 32% of damage. So Karis was pretty good in their loss last time. LPL LPL Summer Grand Finals. JDG and LNG, I've said this for the last week. For those new here and for those that have been around and are going to hear this again, if LNG beats JDG tomorrow, that will not change my opinion on this matchup all that much. JDG are 5-3 against LNG this year. Sorry, this split. And 2-0 in the series that they played. If JDG throw up a dud tomorrow, that doesn't eliminate the other two series. Despite LNG being competitive, I'm not saying that they are not arguably better than BLG right now. They could be. But I do not think that if JDG throw up a dud tomorrow, that LNG are better than them. Not to mention the fact that JDG just beat LNG. It's the double elim nonsense. And I'm certainly not going to celebrate an LNG championship. I think if somebody is, they are really a lost soul and should be advocating for double elim with a reset. Now, when we look at these 8 games, I did something a little different. If you remember, maybe it might have been Worlds previews for their finals. I don't think it was spring, was it? Where I looked in depth at the finals matchup when there was enough games to see like how teams, play the game almost, if you will. Like how do they play? Is it weak side top? Is it facilitator mid? Things like that. And when you compare LNG and JDG's KDAs and damage percentages, they are eerily similar. So in top side, both players around 22-21% of the team's damage. Jungle, high teens. Mid lane, both 29%. And bot lane, around 30-33%. So the teams are actually playing the game very similar on an aggregate across these 8 games. Which is why they're probably close. Because the teams, obviously, Zika and 369, excellent. Tarzan Kanavi, absolutely cracked. Scout and Knight, disgustingly cracked. Bot lane, Gala Hung, Ruler missing. JDG favored, but Gala and Hung have shown up. I mean, they went 32, 36, and 98. And Ruler missing 31, 33, 114. Both of them have more deaths than kills. Very, very close, these KDAs in damage. I expect that series to be very good. And it'll definitely be a possible Worlds preview. I'm not saying Worlds Finals, but a Worlds preview. We will see these two teams play again, I believe. LCS EGC9. I did not do this for this because this is just a regular playoff matchup. EG 12-6, Cloud9 13-5. They've played twice. Cloud9 won both times. Blabber led the team in damage. 12-4-12, 32% of damage over those pair of games. Armeo 1-7-8, 12% in the loss. We've just looked at JDG LNG and how the damage is distributed. C9 EG, very different. Armeo, facilitator, big time. Blabber, carry-oriented jungler in those two matchups, which is definitely not what I expected out of Blabber before the split. But I've been saying all year long, especially in summer, what C9 have been doing with Blabber has given them a look that will provide them with opportunities internationally where they didn't really have that look the last couple of years. So that's it. That's it for the roundup. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it, subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter. Hope to see you again tomorrow.